The humming in the cab isn't coming from the engine. You're alone on the Nevada flats, but the passenger seat is suddenly impossibly heavy. The temperature in the truck drops until your breath clouds the windshield. Then a soft feminine voice whispers directly into your ear. I've been waiting so long for someone to talk to. Welcome, creepy souls. Tonight we're riding shotgun on the loneliest road in America. Some highways don't just carry travelers, they hold on to the dead. Lean back, lock your doors, and prepare for a journey where the empty seat beside you might not be empty at all. We're following a veteran trucker who thought he knew every mile of the desert until a hitchhiker he never picked up began touching his shoulder. You'll see why fleeing to a crowded truck stop offered no protection, and what happens when he finds a photograph on his seat of a woman who died decades ago. The note says she's found him, and she's never letting go. Turn off the lights, and let's dive in. They call this stretch of Highway 93 the loneliest road. It was past 2 a.m., and the only light source was the yellowish beam of my Peterbilt 379 cutting through the endless Nevada desert. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, pressing against the cab windows. I'd been driving for 14 years, and this silence was my oldest companion. I knew the rhythm of the road, the hum of the engine, the vibration in the steering wheel. This was my normalcy. I had a thermos of black coffee that was mostly cold now, but I took a sip anyway, just to feel something. The cabin smelled of stale tobacco and a lingering trace of vanilla from a long empty air freshener. Just an hour ago, the radio had been full of static and distant chatter from other truckers. Now, it was dead air. I couldn't even catch a faint signal. I checked my mirrors. Empty. Just a black void where the road should have been. The temperature in the cab suddenly dropped. I wasn't cold a minute ago, but now I could see my own breath. I adjusted the heater, but it only blew lukewarm air. It felt like a chill from the inside out, a coldness that didn't belong in a moving truck in a warm desert night. I didn't think much of it at first. Sometimes these old trucks just have their quirks, but the cold seemed to have a presence. It wasn't just the air. It felt like a silent spectator was now sitting in the passenger seat. The loneliness started to mutate into something sinister. I found myself checking the rearview mirror more often. Not for other vehicles, but out of a sudden, irrational need to make sure I was still alone. The road ahead seemed to stretch into eternity, the white lines flashing by like hypnotic signals. I started to hear things. Not a distinct sound, but a subtle change in the engine's hum. Like a second, deeper tone was layered beneath it. I rolled down the window, thinking it might be the wind, but the rushing air only amplified the silence. When I rolled it back up, the sound remained. It wasn't mechanical. It sounded almost like humming. I shook my head, blaming it on fatigue. Just the tires on the asphalt, Dave, I told myself, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the quiet cab. I tried to focus on a landmark, anything to break the monotony. But there were no gas stations, no small towns, just the desolate desert. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a shadow moved near the passenger door. Not a shape, not a figure, but a shift in the darkness, like something shifting position. I snapped my head to the right. Nothing, just my bag and some papers on the seat. The internal monologue in my head started a frantic whispering. Did you see that? It was just a reflection. But there's no light to reflect. You're just tired. My heart began to pound a little faster, a subtle underlying thud that I couldn't seem to calm. The smell of vanillin seemed to have intensified, almost to a sickening degree. The humming didn't stop. It became more distinct now, a low, melodic tune that I couldn't quite place. I tried turning on the radio again, hoping for a burst of static, but there was only silence. I even tried shouting, but my voice felt weak, as if the air was too thin. I checked my GPS. The map was blank. No roads, no destination, just a blinking blue dot in the center of an empty grid. I knew this route like the back of my hand, but for a moment I felt completely lost. Suddenly, a voice, soft and breathy, came from the speaker. It's a long road, isn't it? I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart was a frantic drumbeat in my chest. I looked at the radio, its screen dark and lifeless. I couldn't have heard that. It must be sleep deprivation. I was practically hallucinating. I needed to pull over, to clear my head. I steered the truck onto the gravel shoulder. As I did, the scent of vanilla was suddenly replaced by a faint, cloying sweetness, like the smell of a perfume that had been left to sour in the sun. The air in the cab was so cold now that my hands were numb on the steering wheel. I tried to rationalize it. The GPS malfunctioned. The radio shorted out. The smell is just something on the truck. But my logic was starting to crumble. What about the temperature? What about the shadow? Are you all right? The voice said again, this time sounding right next to my ear. I looked towards the passenger seat. It was empty, but as I turned, I felt a slight shift in the weight distribution. as if someone had just sat down. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel a presence. "I've been waiting for someone to talk to," the voice continued. This time, I didn't just hear it in the speaker, I felt it. The breath was cold against my cheek. I was completely frozen, my muscles refusing to obey. The smell of the sour perfume was overwhelming, and I felt a prickle of dread on the back of my neck. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. "I just want to be with you," she said. The tone was sweet, almost loving, but there was an underlying desperation that made my blood run cold. And then, I felt it. A cold, slender hand touching my arm. I flinched, my whole body convulsing. I still couldn't see anyone, but I could feel her. I could feel her breath on my neck, her hand on my arm, the weight of her presence in the cab. The fear was no longer a subtle whisper. It was a screaming torrent. I tried to restart the truck, my fingers fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life, a comforting rumble that seemed to dispel the silence. I threw the gear in drive and sped back onto the highway. "Don't leave me," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "It's so lonely out here." I kept driving, the speed and the roar of the engine my only solace. The shadow moved back to the passenger seat. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her. The cold hand was no longer touching me, but the presence remained. I didn't stop until I reached a truck stop 100 miles away. The parking lot was filled with trucks, the air alive with the sound of engines and the chatter of drivers. I parked my rig, my hands still shaking. The sun was starting to peek over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the asphalt. I climbed out of the cab, the normal sounds and sights of the world washing over me. The smell of diesel and stale coffee was a comfort. I walked into the truck stop, ordered a strong cup of black coffee, and found a seat by the window. I needed to process what had happened. It was a dream, a hallucination. I was overtired and my mind had played tricks on me. I finished my coffee and walked back to my truck. The air inside was warm now, the heater having done its job. The smell of vanilla was back. I smiled to myself, relieved. It was all just my imagination. I climbed into the driver's seat and reached for the radio to see if I could catch a signal. As my fingers touched the button, I saw it. Tucked into a crevice in the upholstery of the passenger seat, there was a small, faded photograph. I pulled it out. It was a picture of a young woman, her hair blowing in the wind, a gentle smile on her face. On the back of the photo, written in delicate script, was a single sentence. "I knew you'd find me." My heart stopped. I slowly turned and looked at the passenger seat. It was empty, but as I turned, I felt a cold hand, slender and firm, squeeze mine. As you close your eyes tonight, just hope that the things you saw on your screen don't decide to follow you home. Because in the world of the night shift, sometimes the shift never truly ends. If these stories kept you on edge, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of creepy souls. We upload new nightmares every week, and you don't want to be left in the dark. Have a true story of your own? Share it in the comments below or email me. Your experience could be our next feature. Until next time, stay safe and stay creepy. Good night.